a painting I did back in, I think it was 2010, in terms of the style I'm using. So there's a painting of a cow just standing on its own in a field, looking straight out of the canvas that I did called The Courage of Youth. And that's actually the image I use for my little avatar on the channel, for example. And that painting was created using very few colours, some gestural line work with a brush, and some dry brush painting, basically. And so this particular painting is a much more complicated composition because obviously we've got 7 animals in the frame, and we've got more of a landscape. But that was really my inspiration for coming back to this style. Really, was the painting The Courage of Youth. And so I thought, well, I'll just revisit that. Not to try and emulate it again, but just to kind of enjoy the experience of painting in that way again. So the lamb in the foreground has got some blue highlights on. So I'm giving the same treatment now to I'm going to call this guy the main sheep again, or this girl the main sheep. So again, I'm keeping the treatment of the 2 animals in the bottom right-hand corner of frame fairly simple, as I did for the background 3 animals. But then the other 2 animals in the foreground, in the midground, if you like, including the one I'm working on now, taking a little bit more of a detailed approach. I was talking earlier about how to continue working outside now that winter's coming in and the weather's getting gloomier. But one of my plans for dealing with that, whether I'm working outside or not, but in terms of dealing with the poorer weather, is I want to do more paintings of gloomy days and rainy days. Landscapes where it is actually raining, or landscapes where it looks like it's about to. Because I've had some good fun recently just painting the view out of the living room window here when it's been chucking down with rain, or when it's just been really gloomy, and really enjoyed playing around with the different tones and colours that you get on those days. And often one of the sort of accepted problems with painting gloomy views or grey days is that the light can be very flat. So, if you're painting something on a bright sunny day, then obviously that brings out all the colours and you've got very clear contrasts between light and shadow. On a gloomy day, that's not always the case, so you have to work a little bit harder or use your imagination a little bit more to enhance the scene, and that can lead to some really interesting creative choices. But I better get back to this painting for the moment because I'm now introducing some highlights on this main sheep. Now what I've done here is taken a yellow ochre and some pure white, and I've got those on the brush in different areas on the bristles. So when I put the brush down, you can see on the top of the sheep's head there, I've got a little burst of white and a little burst of yellow ochre. So I'm automatically getting that little mix of colours, and that's a really enjoyable way to put down highlights, because when you look at the wool of a sheep, we tend to think of a sheep as being white or black in terms of its fleece. And generally that's not really the case. When you look at a white sheep, you'll get a lot of colours within that. The very brightest areas will be white, but there'll often be areas of off-white or yellowy white. The areas in shadow will have different subtle colours within them. There might be a little bit of a green hue in there because the light has bounced off of the green field and then been reflected up onto the white fleece. Similarly, if you look at the black fleece of an animal, there will often be some orangey brown in there as well, because animals are very, very rarely all one colour. Even if they're sort of a pedigree dog or something, and it's a beautiful brown colour, even then, there's always some variation. So the colour combos I'm adding now to these 2 main sheep are beginning to introduce a feeling of warm light. The things were quite subdued up until now in terms of colour and tone. But the introduction of that yellow ochre and the pure titanium white against the blue, against the cooler colours that I've used on the sheep, it really brings out the warmth in those colours. So there's a little bit of a sense of heat and sunlight now striking those two main animals. The other thing I enjoy experimenting with is how quickly I paint. So in general, for this particular painting, you can see I'm working really quite slowly. I'm moving my hand and the brush in a fairly slow and considered style. Now, in contrast, there are other videos on the channel where I've, say, painted a cow in 10 minutes flat. So you have to work quickly. And I guess my natural working speed is generally speaking, more towards the fast side. I don't normally paint as quickly as I do in those 10-minute videos, but I normally work quicker than I am here for this particular one. But again, as well as imitating the style I'd used for the Courage of Youth painting, I also wanted to just take a sort of calm and considered approach for this particular painting. I've been watching some little videos by Simon Davis, I think he's the Vice President of the Royal Society of Portrait Painters, and on his Instagram account he sometimes shows little clips of him painting away, and it just struck me how slowly he worked. And I mean that only as a good thing, in that it was very calm and considered. And so I thought, okay, I'll play around with that idea of slowing down a little bit. So I did add some of the yellow ochre colour to the right-hand sheep and lamb, but less strongly than I did the other animals. And now I'm doing the same thing on some of the blades of grass. So I've been chatting away now for just over half an hour, and I think what I'm going to do for this particular video is I'm just going to shut up for a little bit. So I'm just going to leave you to watch the rest of the footage, see the painting continue to come to life and develop. And then what I'll do is I will check back in around about 15 minutes time and just kind of summarize what I did to bring the painting to completion. And as usual, I'll show you the high-res photograph of the finished work as well. Okay, so I'll speak to you in about 15 minutes time.